Hi, guys. Oh my gosh. If some of you who saw the comment on the other Hood River White Salmon Bridge Facebook page and are already joining us on the White Salmon page, thank you for your patience. Surprise to those of you that might not even have known that we were doing a Facebook Live and you just happened to see the White Salmon page. We are doing a Facebook Live. I'm actually wearing my Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority Commissioner hat this evening, along with Commissioners Anderson and Fox. And we were intending to start this at 5 and do 1 hour to update you guys on some of the recent news on the bridge that's very exciting, the federal funding, which we had planned this at the start of the month and didn't anticipate that we would have that great news. Perfect timing to share with you now, and also answer some questions that we know have just been going around in the social media space and around town on the project, with the hopes that a lot of you start to get involved because things will start to feel like they're moving much quicker than they have for the last 30 years of this pursuit. So I think to quickly reset now that we are live and can start answering questions, I do just want to throw it over to Jessica and let her introduce herself, and we'll do a quick roundtable of introductions and jump in and catch up. We do have all the questions that people had been posting when we originally started on the bridge page. So welcome.
Thanks for that, Marla. And thank you everyone for your flexibility and nimbleness tonight. We are really thrilled to have you here and that you've made space for the Bridge Authority's first Facebook Live event. We promise to have all of these bumps smoothed out by the next time we have an event with you. I'm going to be helping facilitate tonight's discussion. And really, the focus of us being here with you is to help answer any questions that you might have about the bridge replacement project or the new Bridge Authority. And if you have comments, questions, we want you to just post them throughout tonight's live event in the chat box. I'm also going to turn the mic over here in just a second to our other bridge commissioners that are here, as well as Mike Shannon, who's on the project team. But before I do, I just have a couple of quick other things that I want you to note. One, if you are having other technical issues or for some reason you can't comment in this particular event, you can also send your comments to the info@hoodriverbridge.org email address, and we'll also make sure to read those live. We are going to be responding to tonight's comments and questions in the order that they come in. And if we start to see that there's a theme with some of your comments and questions, we might address multiple questions all at once. We were scheduled to end at 6, but we might be able to hang on a little bit later. If we get too many questions that we aren't able to respond to this evening, don't fret. This is not your one opportunity to get your questions answered. We're hoping to have many more events like this, smoother sailing than this one, but we're hoping to have more Facebook Live events as well as some in-person events this spring and summer. And then finally, if you're not familiar with Facebook Live events, this will be recorded so you can rewatch this or share it with others that may have missed tonight's meeting. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Commissioner Fox. And I'm hoping that, Commissioner, you can introduce yourself, your role on the Bridge Authority, and can you just tell us a little bit about who the new Bridge Authority is and what their charge is?
Hey, first off, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with us tonight. I'm Mike Fox. I'm a co-chair of the of the Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority, and I'm also a commissioner for Hood River Port. A little bit about us. Back in July, we initiated our new Bridge Authority Commission. There's 3 representatives from Oregon, 3 from Washington, and 3 alternates from each side as well. We form the governing body, and we're charged with the responsibility of designing, building, operating the new bridge. And look forward to addressing some of the questions you have tonight.
Commissioner Anderson, can you introduce yourself and just elaborate a little bit more about the recent news on the federal grant?
Be happy to.
Elaborate. We just got a
Elaborate.
lot of money. Break it down, Jake.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. My name is Jacob Anderson. I am one of the co-chairs of the new Bi-State Bridge Authority, as well as Klickitat County Commissioner. And as Marla was just saying, we got $200 million from the federal government. And that is going to take us into this next stage of building this bridge. On top of that $200 million, we also have $75 million from Washington State that Senator Curtis King got us. And then we have $20 million from Oregon. So we have a total of $320 million in grants, and we are still working on getting about another $105 million in grants from Oregon and another $50 million in grants from Washington. So we are about 60% funded by grants.
Thanks, Commissioner Anderson. And then Commissioner Keedler, can you introduce yourself? Many people that are already a part of the White Salmon Facebook page already know who you are as mayor, but what is your role on the Bridge Authority? And can you share a little bit about how the Bridge Authority hopes to work with the public?
Yeah, definitely. So as you mentioned, I am the mayor for White Salmon, but I am also one of the founding commissioners. We have 6 voting commissioners and 6 alternates. So we're a big new family of 12 that, as was mentioned earlier, we were formed and operational since this summer. And now, especially with this funding coming in, but even prior to that, the authority getting in place was another huge milestone. And it really set the stage for what we're now in the midst of, which is a year of a lot of activity. And all of that activity is in preparation for shovels to really start going into the ground on this project, probably 2 years or so from now. And so with that, we really feel like we've also matured to a place where we want to get the community more involved. We have twice monthly public meetings. Our offices are actually located down the hill in White Salmon, and we'll share that info later. But our hope is that we can start using not just in-person events. We were at a lot of markets this summer, but also future events like this to really try to answer questions, make sure that people start to see the authority as a trusted source for information, and also really understand that the new bridge is owned by this new governing authority. It is not something that is owned by the Port of Hood River or another entity. And that's a huge shift that I know we've been talking about in our communities, but everybody's got a lot going on. And so I think, again, we're just hoping to try to meet you guys where you're at and get this information out there so that it's more common knowledge.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, so with that, we want to spend the rest of the time that we have with you addressing your questions. And I'm happy to say that we've already had one question come through. The question is, with the $200 million federal funding, does that mean bridge tolls will go down? Or where is that money going to go? And I'm hoping, Commissioner Anderson, you might be able to respond to that.
Thank you, Jessica. So the $200 million is going into the new bridge. The bridge tolls went up, not down. And the reason that the increase in the bridge tolls in September was so that we could raise money to come up with our local portion of the match for this on this $520 million project. So in the long run, yes, the $200 million is going to reduce the bridge tolls on the new bridge compared to if we just had to go out and build the bridge with loans by itself. So if we went out to just build the bridge and took a 30-year loan at, an interest rate, the breeze by would be about $11.25 to go across the bridge. So every dollar that we get that's a grant reduces that cost down to hopefully very close to what we're currently paying.
Thank you. We have another question. How do I go about getting on the bid list? I think this is probably one for you, Commissioner Fox. Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about our procurement process. We're following Oregon law, and where we are right now on the project, the next major procurement we're evaluating right now, and that's a progressive design build contractor that will actually be responsible for the physical design and construction of the project. It'll be kind of an umbrella contract. We will award that at the end of March. Now, that contractor will have the ability to do subcontracts, and there's a lot of talk about using local content as much as we can. So over the course of the next year to 2 years, I would expect that the new progressive design build contractor will go out for bids for a certain amount of work, and we're certainly encouraging that we have local content on that. So basically, stay tuned.
Thank you. Our next question, our historic bridge is an icon that makes this place special. To replace it with something lesser is a tragedy. There are many beautiful bridges, especially steel, cantilever, suspension, cable, truss. Can we shoot for something more beautiful than this blocky concrete monolith? I think this is probably a two-part question, and I'm hoping that Commissioner Fox, you can respond to the design part of the process, and then maybe Mayor Keesler, or Commissioner Keeler, I'm sorry, in this capacity, you can speak to the public process related to how the public can weigh in on the design as well.
Sure, I'll start out. The kind of current design of the bridge that we have that somebody said was an ugly concrete box looking thing. It was actually developed a couple of years ago as part of our permitting process. It's called the preferred option. It's basically a concrete cantilevered box girder type of structure. There's ways that we can make it prettier than just an ugly concrete box. We've got an aesthetic committee that's starting up to help us with that particular topic. But I think over the course of the next 9 months, we'll be coming up with some ideas of how could we really dress up this bridge a bit and make it a little prettier than just a straight concrete bridge.
And then Commissioner Keeler, do you want to talk about how the public?
Yeah, I'm glad this question came up because I would say in recent years, this is something that is often asked when we've been at different events trying to share bridge information, or also just people will mention it to me. And I agree. I think that the bridge that we have really feels like it's part of our landscape. And previously there had been discussions of what would it look like if that bridge could be used potentially going forward, but in different ways. And obviously that's not the direction it's going for a variety of reasons. But I think as Commissioner Fox said, there is an opportunity, and there was some recruitment over the last month to try to get some local residents involved. But this Bridge Aesthetics Committee will be a pretty broad group represented not just by public members, but also local organizations. And they are going to be working to provide recommendations that can help to inform the direction of the design, especially those elements which are called out as part of this project, how we will bring in some cultural aesthetics and recognition of the character of our communities and area. And all of that is some of this work I was saying earlier. We'll start to get underway, and we want to make sure that people are weighing in. If you didn't put in an application for the aesthetics committee, and even if you did and you weren't selected, it doesn't mean you still can't share that input to all of us. Like I said, there's 12 commissioners, all from our communities on both sides of the river. And so we can be collector of your input and feedback as you start to see some of the work that is being shared from that aesthetics committee, and also then through the construction and design team that is part of our authority.
And I'll add that we are also planning some public workshops and online events. So even if you're not on the aesthetics committee, there's still going to be ample opportunities for members of the public to participate and roll up your sleeves and tell us what you think about different design considerations. So
and I think one thing that needs to be added to that for the preferred alternative was the idea going in is we want to build a bridge that's low maintenance, that's affordable, so that we can all afford to drive across it. If we've got a really beautiful bridge, but it would have cost $2 billion to build it, none of us would ever be able to afford to drive across it.
So related question, and this is a good one for you, Commissioner Anderson. Will the bridge toll ever go away?
So the bridge toll going away is not likely going to happen. And the reason for that is this is the gas tax dollars are not going to be used on this bridge because this is not a state-owned bridge. So we don't have access to the gas tax. So even once we get done paying off our portion, you know, the local TIFIA loans, we still have to pay for operations and maintenance of the bridge. And so unless we can talk one of the states into taking on the bridge at some time in the future, which they've had zero desire to do so, we're not going to be able to take tolls completely off.
But that would be what would trigger it. And ultimately, as Jake said, that's not really something that we can predict for the future governing body that is our predecessors, or I guess after us. Probably said that wrong. But at some point, this bridge is being built to meet the standards for the DOTs. And so if WashDOT or ODOT were to express interest once this new bridge is constructed and in place of taking it into their portfolios, it is not that is without the realm of consideration. It's just, as Jake was mentioning earlier, it's not the situation we find ourselves in with a current local owned private, in essence, bridge that's not part of those systems currently.
You know, one other thing to consider here is that we're feeling pressure that the old bridge, the current bridge, is wearing out. It's getting older and older every day that we go. It's costing a lot more money to try and maintain it. So we as a commission are really sensing that sense of urgency that we've got to get a new bridge built to allow our communities to continue to prosper.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've got a kind of a related question. Will the bridge toll go up? And we kind of already have touched on this a little bit. Is there anything else that any of the commissioners would like to add to that?
Sure. In our designs for bridge tolls moving forward based on the loan amount that we have to take when we get the bridge done, there will be an escalator with inflation over time. That's just designed into how the system works. But it's it's in essence with inflation.
Thank you.
And I guess I'll just say too, and I'm coming from the perspective of a Washington resident whose household toll use doubled in September. And so know that we are also very sensitive to understanding why there are so many questions and that sense of uncertainty of what the future looks like. And everything that we are doing now, and that's why it is so significant, the $200 million grant award on Monday keeps us on track for what we've always been aiming to do, which is keep this a publicly funded bridge with the lowest toll cost possible to those that actually use it. And the formulas and the studies that have been done over this last year that walked us to the determination of the price we needed to raise the bridge toll or recommend to the Port of Hood River for that toll increase in September was all in sync with now where we have tracked to reaching that goal of 200 million in federal funding. And so everything so far is falling into place the way that we're envisioning to keep that toll as low as possible. And yes, Commissioner Anderson did allude to how we have been formulating this, which is that once the bridge is in place and operable and people are using it, there is an expectation over time, but that is staged out across years. It is not something that is an increase on an annual cycle to account for what that cost would be in relation to the regular costs that everybody has in their daily life. I wish we had the graphic actually of how our bridge toll stayed the same amount while everything else in the world shot up compared to housing prices in White Salmon back in 1930 to early 2000s when we were still hovering at that dollar range. But that's maybe for another call.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go back to questions about design. So we're getting a few of them. One of the questions that we received is, how about having a bridge design competition? Which is kind of a fun idea. Maybe Commissioner Fox, do you want to respond to that one?
Yeah, that's really a neat idea, and we've seen that happen on other projects. The challenge that we have here is what I addressed earlier, is that we've got to replace the current bridge sooner than later, and the sooner continues to get sooner and sooner and sooner as time marches on. We don't have time, number one, to do such a study. Number two, those studies do cost money. And it kind of comes back to where is best we spend the money that we have through all of these grants and TIFIA loans and so on, and expedite getting a workable, usable, nice looking bridge in place. So I really don't see that we've got the time or the funds to be able to do a bridge competition. It's a great idea if we were where we are today 20 years ago, it would have been cool. But I just don't see it happening now.
Related, how about hiring an architect? And I kind of want to turn the mic, if it's okay with the commissioners, over to Mike Shannon with HNTB for this one, because we didn't get a chance to introduce you. And so maybe you could quickly introduce your role on the project. And since you're a part of this process, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Mike Shannon, and I am here to support the commissioners. They are the ones that are making this happen. We're just here to help deliver it. So we do have architects on our team. They will be participating in the aesthetics committee development. So that will help out. We also actually have an architect on the board. So one of the board members of the commission is actually an architect. So we are doing that, getting that perspective, and do have those team members on our team. So,
is there anything else that any of the commissioners would like to add to that? All right, I'm going to move us on to the next question. Is the roundabout going to be part of the new bridge or just another idea?
Well, Mike is coming to us from the future. He's sitting in the envisioned roundabout on the Washington side, so he can probably jump in with that one.
yeah, so the roundabout is one of the alternative, is part of the preferred alternative that came out of NEPA. It is actually one of the preferred ways to address intersections in Washington. They actually prefer you to start with a roundabout and justify why it does not work. And we will do that as part of the design. So we are very early in design. This is just a concept, but we do envision a potential of a roundabout on the Washington side. But there is more work to do to finalize that decision.
And I just want to give a quick update. It looks like we have 51 participants. So everybody who was on the project Facebook page that found us on the White Salmon page, thank you for finding us here, and again for your patience and just being flexible. The next question that we have is, has it been considered to keep the look and design of the bridge the same? Increase in size and update to current engineering standards. The Gorge Historic Committee can choose the paint color on someone's house, but a committee wants to change the look of the gorge for the next 100 years. I'm thinking this is probably one for you, Commissioner Fox.
Again, there's lots of other alternatives and options for a design of a bridge. I personally love cable stayed bridges. Those are the ones that have these great big posts up with cables kind of loosely dropping down to hold up the deck and so on. There's lots and lots of different types. However, they're very expensive. And reality is we've got $520 million to build a new bridge in time before we have to shut the old one down. So it's kind of limited in our abilities to take a look at other alternatives.
And just if I could add just a little bit to that, during the NEPA process, as part of that process, there are alternatives that are looked at, and that's how we got to the preferred alternative. So there were other types of structures evaluated during that NEPA process as well. So, and looking at the constraints and impacts and cost and feasibility, this was what came out of it as the preferred alternative.
So with that said, though, there's lots of things we can do to beauty up the current design. There's lots of things we can do with the shading, the coloring of the concrete. We can, one of the thoughts that we've had is on these bump outs that we have let's do a competition where we take some of the old structure off the old bridge and do a competition to come up with some kind of a sculpture, and we'll place it in one of those bump outs to make a tie back to the old bridge kind of a thing. But again, with shading, there's things you can do with hand railing and guardrails and lighting and so on that can really make this bridge look really outstanding, but at the same time, let it kind of mold into the background of our gorge scenic area. So it's not an eyesore. It's something that really adds to it. And that'll be part of our aesthetic committee to help us define that.
Mm-hmm. And public workshops too. One more design kind of question, but it's about the current bridge. So is there a way to utilize portions of the old bridge, keep sections on both sides for overlook, a restaurant, bridge museum, stairway? It would entail taking out the center portion, but keeping parts of historic bridge would add to the sense of place for the gorge. Who wants to take this one?
I can. I will speak.
Jump in for just
go for it, Mike.
A bit.
Yeah. We'll go Commissioner Fox and then Mary.
The challenge we have with the old bridge, it is really worn out. We've got challenges with the foundations. We've got challenges all the way through at both ends of that bridge. There has been some talk about perhaps keeping the north portion of it as it goes across the railroad and then somehow tying an elevator or a stairway down from that platform. That's probably doable. Something we can certainly consider, but the main span going across the river, we got to take that out. It's just not going to be safe.
Commissioner Keithler, build off that.
Really glad that Mike mentioned the plans on the North Shore, because he's absolutely correct. Those conversations have been happening for the White Salmon residents and even Bingen. Some of you might recall that a project years back that the White Salmon City Council was considering was a riverfront park in partnership with Klickitat County, and that never died. It's just like many things, it fell a little lower on the list, but this is the perfect opportunity for us to realize that park in coordination with this project. And so absolutely what we're envisioning is how can we use the existing bridge, protecting some of it that is the landing on the North Shore, to use as an access point, because where that project stalled out years before was the difficulty of getting across the railroad tracks. So it solves a problem for us quite nicely. But also there are those conversations currently about what would that look like, and what else could we be doing with that landing if we keep that portion of the bridge, to allow exactly some of those ideas that the commenter who asked that question threw out there. So know that you're not alone with those thoughts. They are part of the conversations we're having, and there is a hope that we can keep some of that, as Mike said, and Mike Shannon can probably jump in, but there's really a lot of maritime travel issues and considerations for why it is so critical that the old bridge, the core of it, is removed, and why there are a lot of benefits for our regional economy, but also nationally, for having the new bridge in place and the way that it'll improve the travel through the Columbia River.
Yeah, and that is something we've talked about. I've actually talked to Commissioner Keithler about that, and we're aware of the desire on the Washington side to maybe do a park there, and are thinking about alternatives for that. We've talked about that becoming a fishing pier where you could walk out and fish off of it or something like that. So we will keep those ideas open. There are a lot of challenges with that, with permitting and making sure it's a safe structure and those types of things that we will have to address. But it is something that's on our minds, and something that we will be keeping an eye on if that opportunity exists.
Exciting stuff. Okay, I've got one for you, Commissioner Anderson. Does Oregon plan to match Washington as far as how much they will contribute?
Yeah, so our goal for the bridge was we wanted 200 million from the federal government, and they came through. And then we wanted 125 million from Washington and 125 million from Oregon. Oregon was able to get us 20 million this last year, and they will hopefully be doing a transportation package in 2025 where they can come up with the difference, the 105 million, so that they can meet their goal. And then in Washington, we're working right now, working as hard as we can to try to get the other 50 million, so that we can get, that total amount from all the sides.
And I think just to pick up with that, one thing that's made this project so unique and special is the strong support we have, not just locally, but at the state level. As Jake mentioned, Representative Helfrich was a huge advocate for this project and helping to get that initial 20 million that we saw out of the last session, and certainly on board and was equally excited right there with us on Monday when this news came out about the infra grant. And so, as Jake mentioned, there's still work to do on the state side, and that's where all of our community members are really a huge help and part of this process in advocating for reminding not just our local representatives, but statewide, our elected officials on the importance of this project for our region and why we need those states to contribute, because it does tie back to the eventual cost that we will all take on as the residents who cross it daily.
Next question is related to that, and I think it probably relates to both the current bridge and maybe the future bridge as well. Why can't there be a local pass per family where you can pay one price and cross the bridge as many times as needed? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I like the idea. And again, not everything is figured out. We do know that tolling will remain a part of this bridge, but certainly have heard, especially since the increase in September, and as I shared earlier, that it is a big financial cost for some of our local residents, and trying to figure out what those different options could look like. The current bridge obviously offers some reductions for public transit. And Mike, I don't know, Mike Shannon, he kind of undersold himself earlier. He has a vast knowledge and experience in transportation nationwide and also with tolling. And so it seemed like maybe you lit up a little bit with this question, or might have some information to offer on maybe what you've seen done on other projects or what could be considered here.
Yeah, and this is a national topic of how to have equity in tolling, and something that a lot of people are struggling with. And a lot of the struggles come around making sure the right people are getting the benefit, and the ones that deserve it get the benefit, and it doesn't get abused. But yeah, I think it is something that we will look at. The bridge will be going to all electronic tolling, which means we will no longer have cash toll booths. Doesn't mean if you're a cash user that you won't be able to still use the bridge. There are methods and ways to do that where you can still have cash accounts and have a breeze by, but that is one thing that we'll be doing. And I think that allows a little better identification of people and classification of people. So it is something that I think we need to consider, and that the commission needs to take up as an idea and something they need to evaluate when we get to that point.
And it also needs to be mentioned that, we're going to have a lot in fixed costs with the repayment of these loans. And whenever we say, if we set a cap for one family, that's going to transition those costs to another family. So in order to, because we've got to meet our costs, we're not a for-profit, bridge authority. We're just trying to cover the cost and the maintenance and the operations. So whenever you reduce the toll rate on one person, you're in essence raising it on someone else.
Thank you, commissioners. And Mike, got a fun idea that came through. How about mandating Highway 35 become a state highway thoroughfare and reclassify it so the state owns it, and then it will not be a toll bridge? It's an interesting idea. Anyone want to build off of that?
So this goes back to, we would love to give the current bridge to the state, and the state never wanted it. We would love to give the new bridge to the state so that gas tax dollars can be used for operations and maintenance, and that could keep it lower. And that is like the long-term goal at some point. But even if the state took it on, there would still be tolls, because we're still going to have to pay down those TIFIA loans that we take for our local match portion. And so at some time in the future, we hope we're going to, hopefully design our system for tolling that could work with the state tolling system so that we can give it to them on a silver platter. Right now, our focus is on trying to raise the grant dollars from the states. And so, they've definitely got a seat at the table.
The next question, I saw there might be a cost to walk or bike across the bridge. Please tell me this is not true. I'm actually going to turn this one over to Mike Shannon because this is one of your favorite things to address.
Oh no, you're mute.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
One question to not be on mute.
I'm working on it. Yeah, it's very difficult to toll pedestrians and bikes across the facility. There are a lot of places that have tried it. It is very, very hard to do. It's something the commission will have to take up. I think there is some commitments in the NEPA to have a free passage for bike peds. So, that's probably where the bridge will end up. Because it would be very difficult to do long term to try to monitor that, charge people, and identify somebody to be able to charge them. So probably long term, I don't see that being a viable solution.
So I think it's safe to say the Cliff Notes version of that is no. There is not active conversation or intent or plan to be tolling bicyclists or pedestrians. We really are pushing for that expanded access for many reasons, but also knowing that improving infrastructure nationwide to have multimodal transportation is a very high priority. And this is something that has really been denied to our communities for a very long time. And so we see a lot of the benefits, most importantly for our local residents, that those other alternative ways of getting across, not just for the recreation and access that it might draw for those visitors to the scenic area.
And we also just want to recognize that we are very well aware of the gorgeous climate and equity goals, the communities on both sides of the river. And so we understand the importance that multimodal transportation options play into that as well. Okay, I've got another question. Where is the new bridge going to be located, and will properties be appropriated by your powers of eminent domain?
Well, the new bridge is located slightly downstream from the current bridge. The Oregon side will basically come in to the property right through where the port office building is now and connect roughly where the toll booth is now on the Oregon side. On the Washington side, it'll be about 75 yards or so downstream from where the current bridge intersects with Highway 14. So it's slightly downriver from that point.
And specifically, impacts of properties, do we think that there will be the use of eminent domain?
On the Oregon side, it lands on port property. On the Washington side, it lands on Clicktack County property, but there is one private property in between there that will have to get either purchased outright or an easement across.
Thank you. So what is the expected lifespan of the new bridge? Commissioner Fox, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, it'll be somewhere north of 100 years. So all of us here at the table won't have to worry about it. Our grandkids may, but it'll be a design for at least 100 years.
Next question is the preferred design simply the cheapest solution? I don't have any faith that public workshops or design committee will be able to improve the look of a mile-long highway overpass. I know we've talked, that is a real concern that's clearly coming through from the community. Commissioners, is there anything else you want to add to that?
I think we need to kind of wait a little bit, see what the aesthetic committee comes out. HNTB, Mike, has got some great tools that can model the bridge as it is right now, change some coloring schemes and move things around a bit. And it's amazing what it can look like. So I think we all need to kind of take a deep breath and let's let the system work a little bit. And I think we're going to come up with a pretty nice looking bridge.
I mean, I think, and I agree, but I would say, and hearing all these questions, and also this is a question I'm sure the rest of them, but speaking for myself, I get a lot. And I think, it's hitting home that this project is also bittersweet. We reached a huge milestone. This project is very real. When something all of a sudden starts to feel more permanent, it resonates in a new way. And the bridge that we have is iconic. It has been a part of our region for people's lifetimes. And when you go into any of the shops that sell local souvenirs or tchotchkes, you often see this bridge sitting in the middle of a postcard or an ornament or a bookmark. It is special. And our hope, genuinely, understanding that the new bridge is not going to look exactly like the bridge that we've had, is that we do the best we can and bring as many people along in that process to help to inform the decisions that are made, so that what we do end up having for the next 100 years is something that our communities can be proud of, and we don't feel like it wasn't informed by our direction, and that it does just feel like a highway or something that would be passed anywhere else. Because our scenery, I mean, we're in the scenic area. And so sometimes that can be adding additional layers to processes, but I think it also is a very strong reminder that we do live in a special place and we aren't looking for this new bridge to be an eyesore. It is critical, it is necessary to replace the bridge that we have, and we want to do it in a way that can also leave a lasting legacy that isn't just, well, we finally got it done, but the old bridge was beautiful and this bridge is also special.
I want to just recognize that we are at 6 o'clock, and I'm hoping that all the commissioners and Mike, that all of us can stay on for at least another 10 more minutes, because we do have over 60 participants on and more questions to go through. I'm seeing thumbs up that everyone can stay on. Thank you.
I have a babysitter, so I'm good.
Great. Two questions from one commenter. What percentage of the current tolls go towards the bridge, and will this percentage shift to 100%? Commissioner Anderson.
Yes. So the toll increase that we had this year, 100% of that is going to the new bridge to be held in an account. In 2026, all of the bridge tolls that are being paid will either be used on the current bridge for maintenance so that it doesn't fall in the river before the new bridge opens. And anything that doesn't get used for maintenance will then be used to help pay down the debt that we're going to have, for our local portion.
Anything else that anybody wants to add to that?
Just to clarify, so the old bridge and the tolls off the old bridge, as of July 1st, 2026, 100% of those tolls collected will stay with that bridge only for maintenance, repair, or replacement going to the new bridge.
Thank you for that.
Now, adding to that, on the new bridge, the way legislature was set up, 100% of whatever we get off of tolls on the new bridge when it's operational has to stay with the new bridge. It cannot be used for anything else. That's a big difference from the current bridge.
Next question. Will the tolling equipment be upgraded to accept the good-to-go transporters that are currently used for all the tolling bridges and roads in the state of Washington? I'm seeing a head nod yes from Mike Shannon. Do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, actually the equipment on the old bridge, surprisingly, is some of the best equipment around. It's actually the same equipment that's used on the Golden Gate Bridge. But yes, it does have the ability to be interoperable, as we call it, with Washington and Oregon as well. So And if we get some national interoperability agreements with other states, it would also be able to be used for that as well. So it will have that ability.
But when we design the new bridge, we're going to design that into consideration.
Is the speed limit going to stay the same on the new bridge? Commissioner Fox?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Will the speed limit stay the same on the new bridge?
No,
Can you tell us
it'll
what we
be a
think the
lot
speed limit?
higher. It'll probably be somewhere around 45 miles an hour, I'm guessing. Right, Mike?
Yeah,
The limiting factor is not the bridge. It will be nice and wide lanes and buffer zones and so on. The limiting factor will be at either end of the bridge as it merges into 14 on the Washington side or over on the Oregon side with that intersection there. So we won't have a real speed problem going across the bridge as we do now at 15 miles an hour. Just to add a point, the reason why it's 15 miles an hour is that what we've seen, heavy trucks driving at excessive speeds tear up the bridge. And we've got great examples of that. That's why we lowered from the commission, we lowered it down to 15, and come March 1st, the weight restriction is going back down because we're tearing up the bridge, and we've got to make it last until we can get the new one in place.
Can I jump in for a second selfishly? But I think I've found it hugely valuable when Mike breaks it down this way, because obviously when we did reduce it to 15, that was a big point of contention. But Mike, you've often drawn the comparison to the ICE truckers. And I think you describe it well, just so people can understand why it is actually very helpful to try to slow down the traffic and how that actually moves with physics across the structure.
For you folks that have watched ice road truckers, as a truck goes across a lake, you have to keep the speed way down, because what happens, water underneath the frozen part starts a kind of a sine wave. And the longer it goes, the bigger that wave becomes, and eventually it'll crack the ice and the truck falls in. Something similar is happening on our bridge. If you take a look at the grading spans various members, and that grading fluctuates like this. And what we have seen with heavy trucks and quick speeds, it's busting the welds on that grading, and we've got great examples of it. There's this last review we did, there's thousands of welds that we've got to go repair because they busted out. That doesn't mean that the bridge is going to fall over or you're going to fall through, but it shows that we're tearing up that bridge, and by reducing the speed limit and reducing the weight, it's really extending the life of the bridge.
I think that really helps. So thank you for everyone weighing in on that. We have probably more questions than we're going to be able to get through tonight. I have 5 more that I'm hoping we can try to get through. So has it been considered to not allow large trucks or semis to go across the bridge now to prolong its safe use? This also seems like it's one for you, Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, I think if we watch the loads that are going across the bridge, and I want to say something here. There's no way that the port right now can really check whether somebody's overloaded or not. There's no way to catch them. So it's very much an honor system. But what we've done with the weight restrictions, for those types of trucks, if they really honor it, I think we're in pretty good shape to be able to extend the life of this project such that we can get the new one built. If we have people that ignore the weight restrictions and just keep running across the bridge, we're going to have a problem, I think. So I think the way we've designed it, the way we've selected it, it takes care of most of the problem, which would allow us enough room to finish the new bridge and retire the old one.
Thank you. All right, the next question is for you, Commissioner Anderson. Has the committee explored the difference in toll or payment solutions that have been worked into the Dalles versus the Hood River Bridge, White Salmon Bridge? So
I think what that's saying is that the Dalles Bridge was a toll bridge, you know, the Astoria Bridge was a toll bridge. But those are owned by the states. And so the state is using gas tax dollars. Once those loans, you know, those bonds were paid off, then they just rolled it into the maintenance program for the states. The state is very hesitant to take on new bridges and new projects because the gas tax dollars is not expanding at the rates in order to take on more projects. You know, the backlog of maintenance that the state has is billions upon billions of dollars.
thank you. The next question I think really relates to the port. So will the Bridge of the Gods be separate from the new Hood River Bridge? Tolls will be different or same once the new bridge is up. And I know that there's two different ports that manage those. So Commissioner Fox, do you want to speak to that?
That is exactly true. It's two commissions that administer both of the bridges. They're totally independent. And I think they will continue to be independent. So the Bridge of the Gods, that commission sets the rates for that particular bridge. And it really depends on what the condition of the bridge is, how much maintenance they need to make on that bridge, the long-term capital improvement program for it. It's going to look different than our new bridge. I would expect our new bridge for the first number of years, the maintenance on it should be pretty minimal. Of course, we're going to want to make sure that on the toll side, we create enough reserves there to pay for the maintenance, all the while paying attention to what it's doing to our local economy and our local users of the bridge. All of us want to keep the toll rates as low as we can, but we gotta maintain the bridge.
I think this is going to be our final question for tonight. Are there any plans for a pedestrian bridge walk or for the original bridge after the new bridge is in place and before decommission takes place? We already spoke to this a little bit, but I wonder, Commissioner Keeler, if you want to speak to this a little bit more.
Well, I love that idea. It sounds like what they're asking is, could there be the possibility, once we were planning to decommission the existing bridge, to create an opportunity for the public to actually access it one last time? And again, this is why I hope we do these in the future, because it's a great way for us to be getting input from the community to help expand where we're thinking. You know, we've been so focused and kind of as blinders on about needing to check off the steps we have right in front of us. But that's a great idea. Like I said, a lot of where we've been trying to mitigate the loss of that bridge is how to keep some of it as part of the North Shore, at least on the Washington side. But I mean, I can only speak for myself as a commissioner, but I hope we bring forward that idea at the right time when we are well ahead and looking at focusing our attention on the removal of the old bridge and how we could maybe create that kind of opportunity before the structure actually starts to get disassembled.
As one of the commissioners that have actually walked the bridge recently, I think it's a great idea. It's a great send-off to something that's been iconic around our community for many, many, many years. And it's quite the deal to walk across that bridge and look through the grating all the way down into the water. I'd welcome that.
I know I would love to do it. So yeah, thank you for that idea.
I think we'd all be surprised by the actual grade of the bridge to actually walk the full length, which would be fun too.
So we did have some additional questions that we weren't able to get through tonight, but don't worry, we are tracking all of them, and we will be able to respond to some of those on the FAQs page on our Bridge website. But also, as I mentioned at the start of this event, this is not the last time you're going to have an opportunity to have, you know, a Q&A with Bridge commissioners. We might actually ask some of the other Bridge commissioners to join us next time. So I'm really grateful to those of you who are able to join us tonight and just being really open with exploring some of these questions and comments that came through. I also support this project with communications and public involvement, and I in particular was, it's really helpful to see what's on all of your minds. So some of the things that came up for me is that clearly we need to have some more conversation around what tolling might look like for the current bridge, future bridge. What does that mean for just like long-term funding and where tolls are going? I also heard a lot of interest in what happens with the bridge design. And so I'm looking forward to working with many of you on looking at different options for the bridge design concepts. And we also just have some really good questions about whether or not we could do something interesting with the existing bridge and how we might be able to, like enjoy the special bridge that has been with us for 100 years. So as you have additional questions, concerns, things that you want to discuss with our Bridge Authority commissioners, we highly encourage you to join us at a Bridge Authority meeting. They are twice a month, the second and fourth Mondays from 2 to 4. They're in White Salmon. They're also posted on the project website. We also plan to do more events like this, like I said, with fewer hiccups. But I want to just quickly turn it over to the commissioners who joined us tonight. Is there anything else you'd like to add? And I know, Mayor Keeler, you had a couple of other last minute thoughts before we close on just like where we go from here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you touched on how we will still follow through on answering those questions that maybe we didn't touch on tonight, and even some of those follow-up actions of how people can stay involved. So I definitely recommend to everyone, I know we're doing this tonight on the White Salmon Facebook page, but please make sure you're following the Bridge page, because obviously what we learned tonight is we should not be in charge of Facebook Live things. We'll just focus on building a bridge, but we'll figure out our kinks and do some of these going forward. And definitely, I think that, the three of us have certainly been involved in this project through our other elected capacities for a few years now. Before the authority, we were the bi-state working group with some other partners out of the cities of Bingen and Hood River and Hood River County. And we do have new faces that are representing all of you to make decisions for this bridge. So I hope that the future meetings we have, you get to start to meet some of our other commissioners. There's 9 others, so we can cycle through quite a few. But yeah, as similar to what Jessica said, I think this was really helpful for us tonight. It certainly reaffirmed things we already knew were really important. The cost to cross the bridge and how tolling will be handled, but especially the design. I think it was really helpful for all of us to hear that input, because it can help to frame kind of how we focus some of those efforts, especially on the design, which will start to get underway soon.
Thank you. Any other parting words, Commissioner Fox, Commissioner Anderson?
I would just say we've been working on this tirelessly, and we're going to be spending as much time as we need in Olympia and Salem to try to get every grant dollar we can to keep the cost as low as possible when we build this bridge. And thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. This is recorded, so it's going to be online, so please share it. We want to get as much of this information out into the public so that the misinformation doesn't go too awful far. And thank everyone.
Commissioner Fox?
Just watch us go. We're getting the money together. We've got a schedule together. We're going to open the new bridge October 1 at 10 a.m. on 2029. So welcome you to come on out and help us celebrate it.
Save the date.
And
thank you, everyone.
One thing on the celebration side that I really do want to talk about, because it is so special that our communities received this award, that this project got elevated at the right level at the right time when these types of infrastructure funds were available, is huge. And it was such a team effort, not just all of Mike's team. There's many other people supporting us through his world, but also our fellow commissioners, but definitely the community. Every time we've been to DC, the stories that have resonated when we have sat across from Senator Murray and sat with the staff of all of our offices and with Senator Merkley and all of our elected officials have been your stories. all of you who have shared stories into myself or others when we've had bridge closures of how not having this bridge impacts your life are the things that resonated and were a huge part of how we were able to keep this project at a higher level in the minds of those that were making this decision. So, I mean, I screamed a lot on Monday, and I don't expect all of you to scream in your own homes, but all of you should really just take a moment to appreciate how significant it is that we actually got these dollars. I think this was something that felt out of touch for a really long time, and we achieved it. And it really was a win for all of our communities. And I just hope, I've been trying to get everyone to hold poster boards by the bridge since Monday, and the weather hasn't been in our favor, but we're going to figure out a way to have some community celebration because it really is a significant milestone, and it's a big deal that we were able to achieve it.
And I just want to share, because commissioners, might not be able to see this, but we are getting some comments that say, thanks for the hard work you're putting in. Thank you for your dedication to this effort. And thanks for doing an impossible job. So, and thank you again, community, for participating tonight. We're looking forward to more with you soon. Enjoy your evenings.